Hello, everyone. Today, we will talk about the initial steps after your application is refused. We will cover reconsideration. We will cover ATIP or GCMS notes. And also, we will talk about your study plan or your SOP. Let's talk about reconsideration first. The reconsideration is an informal request to the officer who made the original decision on your application. It's a request that, hey, officer, I think I have already provided you all the details. Can you please take a look at my application again? I think there is an error in this decision. Now, the officer, most often, they are not bound to open the application again. However, sometimes they do open this application. This take very long time because the original officer who made the decision will be taking a look at your application. If they decided it's not that it will be assigned to somebody new to open. So because of that, it has to basically wait until the officer is free and available, which may take weeks and months. And most often, they will refuse to reopen your application. And if they do open your application, the decision would most likely remain unchanged. There are rare cases where the officer have reviewed and made a positive decision after initial negative decision. However, those are very rare. Now, if the concern that officer raised in your refusal are genuine concern, and then you can address them by providing more information, more supporting documentation and evidence, I would highly encourage you to avoid reconsideration because it is unnecessary wastage of time for the officer as well as for you, because the application will be waiting for the same officer. If you reapply with your new explanation and information, it will be then assigned to a new officer or the same officer if they have a room in their plate available to review this application. So you will receive your decision and review much faster than waiting for reconsideration. When we compare the cost, reconsideration does not have any cost attached to it. There's no government fees because it's not an official process. It is just an informal request to reopen. It's not a formal application. Applicants don't have right to have reconsideration on their application. It's just a very discretionary to the officer if they want to open or not. So there is no applicable fees for reconsideration. On the other hand, a reapplication will have same application fees of your original application. For example, for study cases or for study permit application, it will be $150 government application fees, assuming that you have already paid and went through your biometrics with your original application. Now, let's talk about the GCMS part, GCMS notes. GCMS is Global Case Management System used by the Government of Canada to manage and process applications for Canada immigration. Now, when officer is making decision, they have to record their observation as a comment in GCMS. Those comments are not available in the refusal letter you get. The refusal letter you get is more often a generic refusal letter, and it gives very little idea about why your application was refused. Because of that, it becomes very essential to request your GCMS notes to understand what were the comments that were made by the officer during the assessment of your application. That's why requesting GCMS becomes more important when we are trying to address applications with past refusals. Now, GCMS is the name. Now, the request that is made under to get these GCMS note, it's under ATIP. It's called ATIP, Access to Information and Privacy Act. So many people call it ATIP request. Many people call it GCMS request. And before GCMS, there was another older system that was used by Government of Canada. So many people also call it CAIPS notes as well, based on that older name. It has not been case for several years now, so the new term is GCMS. Now, is it beneficial to get these before you reapply? Absolutely, especially if you applied through an education agent or any other agent who had lower credibility in your eyes. So definitely it's worth, because it's more often the case with several ghost consultants who are not licensed or authorized to mislead the applicants and also include some of the fraudulent documentation, hide some information. Because of that, it becomes really hard to assess what should we be changing in your next application. So without understanding the baseline, without understanding what went wrong at the baseline, we can't fix the new application. So because of that, having that note part is super important. Notes and documents are two separate things that can be ordered through the same request or through the same process of the request. Notes will give you only the activity on your application as well as the comments of the officer. If you have all the documents of your application that were submitted, that means all the forms you have a copy, all the financial SOP or study plan, whatever you had a copy of that, you just need notes. If you have no concern that the agent that you used did not submit any document made by themselves. So if you are convinced that there is no fraudulent document additional submitted to your application, then you just need notes. You don't need the document as well. However, if there is a single % of doubt that you have in your mind regarding the credibility, regarding the possibility that somebody may have submitted a different document that you did not know or you don't have a copy, then you also need to submit a request for the full file. That way, when you will get your request come back to you, it will also include all the details, including your forms and your financial documents and SOP and other documents that were submitted with your application. So basically, you'll get a complete copy of your application. And that becomes super important when you have concerns regarding documentation and you want to make sure that when you are submitting reapplication, you know what was in there for the first original application and what are you changing. So when you are submitting a new application, if there is a discrepancy in the information, you can write about it, you can explain, you can write a letter of explanation, and then that should not cause any issue in your future application if that discrepancy is explained properly. So super important. Now, many people suggest to hire a content writer or SOP writer for your study plan improvement if your SOP or study plan was bad in your own eyes. However, it's very subjective. Now, SOP or study plan is about you. It's about your journey of what you have achieved so far and about your plan of your career in your own version and what you plan to achieve after completing your education in Canada. So it's not anybody else's job or not even job part. Nobody else can be with you, can be in the same boat as you are. Nobody else can express the same way that you can. So definitely it becomes super important that you draft your SOP or study plan the best way you can, and you can hire somebody professionally to fine tune that up to help with the language flow and information like that. However, the core should be yours. You should do your own research. Do not rely on anybody else's expertise or claimed expertise because we don't know about their part. We don't know about their skill set. There are so many questions regarding an SOP writer. There are some good writers out there that can definitely help you bring out the idea that you want to express. However, getting the idea or getting their own idea from scratch, it will be very difficult for you to retain that. For example, let's say you are out and about and you receive a call from an officer who has some questions to clarify before making a final decision on your application. It happens. It's rare, but it happens. If you have written the core of your study plan, you will be able to confidently answer what was in there, what your plans are, what your intentions are. But if you just submitted it written by somebody else, you will have no clue what was there, and also your information that you will provide may conflict with the information that is already written in your study plan. So because of that, it becomes super important that it's true to you and genuine. So make sure you keep that in mind when you are hiring anybody for your SOP fine-tune work or writing work. Now, next part we talk about is agent change. Now, okay, you have your GCMS notes and you have your SOP fine-tuned. Now you're ready to reapply. Agent change. You have full right to change your agent to anybody who you trust, and then you can take up with that. We have heard some incidents where the previous agent refused to release the documentation to you for any reason that are non-justifiable, because if you see your application, you have right to all the documentation that is submitted in your application. But we have heard a lot of stories where agent will refuse, especially those are when they are non-licensed or non-unauthorized agents. They most likely will refuse to provide you this information. So because of that, it may be a challenge for you or time-consuming game to get all the documentation. But if you have everything, or if the document that you are not getting is not critical, you can definitely consult your next agent and then work with them if they could submit and represent you for your new application. It will not be too difficult for you, especially if you have submitted dual request when you submitted GCMS request for notes as well as for the application. Then it will be a breeze for you. Then you won't have to ask anything else from your previous agent, because your application with the file note will receive everything that was submitted anyway. So you're good that way. Now, after that, how to avoid refusals for the following reasons, and how to work on the SOP for the same. So again, we talk about the SOP before, so just leading into that part, but how to avoid refusal is very tough to answer, because the refusals are dependent on applicant, the office where the application was processed, the officer who processed these applications. So there are so many factors that we cannot standardize, right? So because of that, it becomes very subjective on how we could improve these applications. So in my opinion, we should do our best. We should represent and present your application the best possible way, addressing all possible concern the officer may have. Now, this may summon many documents that you did not include in your original application. However, documents work as evidence of your arguments. So I suggest including as many documentation as possible to support your arguments and comments in your study plan. So because of that, you need to make sure everything is clear and addressed in a logical manner with the provided supporting evidence. So that is the one point that you can deny. Now, these decisions on temporary applications are very subjective, and it allows a significant room for discretion. So discretion is the person who is reviewing your application should be satisfied with what you are trying to say. Now, in most often for study permit application, it is you will leave Canada at the end of your stay. Okay. Now, with that being said, depending on the officer, if you write one small sentence that you have family here in India, Pakistan, Nepal, China, or whatever country you are from, and then you have some business activity, you have a promise for job, you have employment history over there, and you have some other commitments to that country, or you have a simple plan to grow and establish your business or join a pre-existing business, which should be enough for officer to satisfy that you will leave Canada by the end of your stay. Now, in other cases, regardless if you provide significant evidence that you have well-documented job offer, you have well-documented properties, you have a concrete business plan, everything supported by the evidence, there is a possibility because of that discretionary factor, one officer may not be satisfied with your proof. So it's not one size fit for all approach. It's just do what the best is in your situation and your profile for your application and hope for the best. Doing your best means that you are having a decent understanding of law, how these temporary applications work, and then work around addressing what is the requirement by law. Okay, not just giving them random documentation, right? So you need to be specific in what you are providing and what purpose it's solving. So because of that, how can we help you? We can help you in 3 ways. First is requesting your notes or application through GCMS service. You can visit our GCMS service at gcmspro.com and you can order your notes or full file depending on your needs, and our professional team can take care of the rest of the part of the processing. Next is a detailed review of your application. You can book a consultation with me and I will take a look at all the documents and the file and your SOP or study plan that you submitted with your application and see how your application performs on the criteria set out by the law and also the discretionary factors. Now, what we do is we do 2 types of assessment. One is hard assessment that weighs your application against the criteria set out in the law, Immigration and Refugee Protection Act and Immigration and Regulation, and any other ministerial instructions or IRCC instructions that they have set out for your application. In that, it will include completeness check as per the section 10 of the regulations, as well as it will also include other fixed criteria such as the completeness in terms of the document checklist that is sometimes specific to the office that your application is processed or you submit your application to. For example, police certificate is not required if you submit your application to Delhi office. However, it is required if you're submitting your application to Sydney office in Australia. Just an example. And then next, we can also review your financial sufficiency. This is also a hard requirement set out in the law and regulation. Now, after that, we can review your discretionary factors. Discretionary factors include your family ties, your employment history, your education background, your future plans, and on the balance of probability, that is the standard that is used in the assessment of your application. It's called balance of probability. So we can see how we can draft your application or strengthen in a way that on a balance of probability, we could argue to the officer that you will leave Canada at the end of your stay. So that is the key requirement for a study permit application. Now, third is we could represent you. We could formally represent you in your next application. We will strengthen your application where possible. We may ask you to provide us more documentation that you submitted earlier to make sure we support our submitted arguments with proper evidence. And not only that, we could review your overall application, and also we will do a research in the case law. So case law is when the court in Canada gives their decision, either in favor or against the applicant. So we could do a research and then see where the court has given favorable decisions to the clients or to the applicant where the profile was similar to your profile, or also there are some sections, for example, financials of the profile are similar, or the family ties, or for example, the program choice, or your career planning, or your future perspective in your home country. There are several factors that you would be surprised that similar factors have been taken to the court by several applicants, and then we can refer in our submission letter that will be drafted by me and my team that these these are the cases that were similar to the applicant's file and profile, and the court has ruled a positive decision in the applicant's favor. And we can refer those case law in the submission letter that we will draft for you when we are submitting your application again, if you are retaining our professional representation service. So this is the work that we could do for you. No one can guarantee you success. If somebody is guaranteeing you success, that means it's a red flag for a scam. What we can assure you is the best possible application based on the documentation, based on your detail, and the overall profile that you have. So far, we have pretty good success rate, and we really would like to see you successful, and we're looking forward to welcoming you in Canada. Take care.